Welcome to my journey of reading The Eye of the World. I'm really glad that you could join me on this adventure. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts on chapters 7 to 13 of The Eye of the World. So if you have not read chapters 7 through to 13 of The Eye of the World, go do it now. I don't want to be the person who spoiled it. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts about how I felt immediately after finishing each chapter. So at the end of each chapter I stop and I write a page, one page only per chapter in this lovely book, about what I'm thinking. That could sometimes be questions, it could just be random quotes that have stood out to me, or it could be comments or predictions about what's to come. It is my thoughts. They could be incredibly wrong, they could be incredibly right, but that's what it is. So let's get started with chapter 7. Chapter 7, Out of the Woods. I briefly suspected the village might have been attacked. They're looking for someone. Only houses where a youth Rand's age lived appeared to have been attacked. I think, anyway. I guess Moraine's price for helping save Tam will take Rand out of the village. I hope she can save him. And by him, I mean Tam. I'm looking forward to learning more of her and Lan. I find them really interesting. I didn't say much more about them than I'd said nothing more about them than that. I just find them really interesting. Looking forward to getting to know them more. And Aes Sedai, however you say it, are they like a wizard? Is Moraine Gandalf? Or are they a very different kind of magic user? I'm looking forward to finding out more. I also just wrote, very interesting. Chapter 8, A Place of Safety. And here we see how reluctant an adventurer Rand is. He's happy at home. He sees his life unfolding there. He's got no obvious signs of wanting to explore outside of his village, which is uncommon, I find, for a lot of these, this style of fantasy book. But when Moraine explains his and his friend's presence is a danger to the village, he knows he has to go. Fear is there, fear and trepidation. I also really like that what that shows us about him is he doesn't want to leave, but he cares more about his village and the people that he loves than he cares about what he wants. His love for Tam is incredible. It's rare to see such a good father figure and so respected by their child, especially like a child verging on that sort of adulthood. From what we can see, Rand is not pushing the boundaries. He's not sitting there thinking he wants his own farm or any of those things. He just seems quite content with life. I would say that the book managed to hook me early, much earlier on, but definitely by chapter 6. So this is me writing after chapter 8. Definitely by chapter 6, it had me hooked in knowing more about these characters and more about the story. It's not a battle to keep reading it. I'm not really struggling to pick it up and keep reading like it was a little bit after chapter 1 and 2. I think chapter 1 and 2 I had too much fear and trepidation, like Rand, about the adventure that awaited, and I didn't particularly want to pick it up because I knew it was going to be a long journey. But I'm so glad that I did, and by now I'm really caught up in what's going on. Chapter 9, Tellings of the Wheel. Tam and Rand's goodbye was brief and left so many questions. There was not so much information, they didn't give much away. We can kind of start guessing, I suppose, about what's going on. But there's also the belief here that they would meet again. I don't feel that we've seen the last of Tam. I mean, he's got some recovery to do, but I don't feel like he's gone from the story, and I hope that is the truth, because I'll be very sad if we don't learn more about him. I feel that this is a really special father-son relationship, and as I said earlier, we just don't have enough of these relationships where they are just, there's so much love and care and respect between the two of them. Even though Tam is very clearly looking after Rand, he's doing what a father would do, and I really like it. Moraine's story brought a tear to my eye. when she spoke of the last stand of men and women wanting to protect their home and give their people a chance to live. I want anything that I ever write, any story that I ever tell, to capture that emotion that I felt, how much she respected them, that emotion. I love a story that can capture my emotion and really sort of manipulate it in a way. And this story in places has definitely managed to do that. I've felt the fear, and I felt the joy, and I felt the anger, and I felt the fear and everything. I said fear, but I felt the emotions. And Rand's final thoughts for the chapter, on page 141 in this edition of the book, trying to convince himself that he was beginning a grand adventure. I just feel that sums up his character perfectly. He is that reluctant adventurer. He doesn't want to go, and he's trying to convince himself that he wants to because he knows he has to. Love it. Chapter 10, Leave Taking. It's a very amateur nighttime escape. I feel that this has that similar feel to a similar idea of the formation of the Fellowship, where people just keep getting added on, like when Merry and Pippin in the Fellowship jump in and say, "You can't go without us." It had that feel to it, but even almost a little bit more humor, because you could just feel you could feel Lan's emotions about having extra people who he saw as you felt that he saw them as a burden more than anything else. But it also had that feel of the escape from the Shire, where right in this moment the hobbits felt that they were going out for a bit of a lark almost, and these people are sort of joining into the escape without sort of realizing the danger that they were facing. 5 extra people, 2 apparently not by necessity, traveling with them. So having Tom and Egwene join them, can you imagine being Lan in that moment where you find out that not only do you have these 3 villagers that you need to take, that Moraine is like, we've got to take them. You also have this gleeman who you know nothing about, and who, if you like a gleeman, a warrior may not have as much respect for the gleeman. And then not only that, but Egwene, at this stage, she's not really showing a lot of gumption, I suppose, or not a lot of up and go. But I'm really happy, going back to my notes, I'm really happy that Egwene is along for the journey, for now at least. We'll see how I feel about her later. That means that there's currently 2 female, and I also believe that a 3rd will be joining them very, very soon. There is such a juxtaposition between the long dead Manetheri. My writing is really bad sometimes. I don't know. Manetherans. You know, the people who died like years and years ago. So there's such a juxtaposition between the ancient people and the current people of the village. But still, maybe that bravery is visible. Maybe it might not be as obvious, but that they've got a quiet bravery, maybe not the loud bravery that the ancient race, the ancient people had. I'm not saying that word again if I can help it. Maybe I will when I've got better handwriting. Chapter 11, The Road to Taran Ferry. Taran Ferry. I had to remind myself to stop at the end of this chapter, and that's the first time that it had happened. We have a chapter of horse riding, intense horse riding, and some insight into characters, especially Rand and Egwene. His actions are slow. He's not yet been able to process what's happening, and is often a beat behind everyone else. Example, mounting his horse, Cloud, near Watch Hill on page 157. But he was ready to fight, which also says something about his character, and where his character might be heading once his brain catches up. Egwene is exhilarated by adventure, even when pursued. A quote on page 157. Egwene's face in the moonlight was smiling in excited delight. Rand's mouth dropped open in disguise. I've abridged it a little bit. Disguise? Rand's mouth dropped open in disguise? This is the problem when you're sort of writing things and trying to rush to get your thoughts out. In surprise. How did I write disguise? So his mouth dropped open in surprise. Rand has some particular gender roles in his mind. And even though Egwene has been outspoken about wanting more, he didn't believe her, and maybe also because he was happy with what he has. He couldn't imagine anyone else wanting more, especially Egwene, who he's been romantically connected to. Or romantically connected to, that might be too strong a word. Anyway, I just think it's really interesting when you compare the two. You've got Rand who doesn't want to be leaving. He's slow to act. He's just waking up, and Egwene jumping in, ready to go. I wonder whether that will get her in trouble at some point. Only time will tell. Chapter 12, Across the Taran. Actually, here, just an observation there. Again, like in the Fellowship of the Ring, in Lord of the Rings, there is that sort of journey across the river. And I believe, unless my memory is really playing tricks with me, the hobbits do have to cross on a ferry or at a ferry or they something similar. I've got another quote here, page 162. There must be a difference in what you saw, it seemed to him, depending on whether you sought adventure or had it forced on you. I mean, it's so true, isn't it? Rand really doesn't want to be going on this adventure, and yet, and that sort of comparison between what the others, some of the others, Egwene, might be feeling in that sense, and what they've seen and what they're feeling. It's very, very, very clear there's a difference there. Lan had set up a place for them to hide and camp in advance. Was he thinking they would have someone with them? They were clearly looking for the same person as the Myrddraal, the Fade. I'll just stick with the Fade, I think. Now, I'm not sure I trust Tom, but I'll withhold judgment at this stage. Mat and Perrin are becoming distinct characters, but I'm still wanting more fleshing out. I'm feeling that they're quite, we don't know a lot about them, especially given how close or how long Rand has known them. Maybe that's why, maybe Rand isn't thinking about them because he knows them so well. But I feel like we should be seeing a little bit more of them at this stage, or a little bit more of an insight into them, but they just need more fleshing out. Not much is known about them, and while I like Perrin's steadiness, I'm not sure I like Mat, or Mat's sharpness. Egwene as a potential Aes Sedai is a nice little twist. It's not something that has shocked me, but I hadn't thought of it at all. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. As opposed to a, what? You know, sometimes things just take you by surprise, but I don't think it's meant to be that big of a surprise. There's a reason she's along for the journey. And it makes me think that Egwene is going to have a bigger part to play as the journey continues, as the books continue. I had sort of thought the Aes Sedai had been a bloodline thing, so that you had to be from like a family. So if your mother was one, then you would be one. I thought that was the case, but now I'm thinking that that's not the case. So we also have the world building present in the explanation of men and women who can access the source. So more information, which I'm assuming is going to be incredibly relevant given the prologue. And then will Rand have that if he ends up being the dragon's heir? Is he going to be able to access the source? And what does that mean? And finally, chapter 13, choices. More journeying. Rand is worried about Egwene's training. maybe a little jealous of her interest in it and fear of where it might take her and how it will change her. There's also a little sense that he feels that he owns her. Not overly, like I don't think he's sort of sitting there saying she can't do that because I don't want her to. There's a protectiveness, I suppose, more than ownership, but there is something there, like in the gender roles there, about him not wanting her to do something. And there's also obviously that fear of what it means, and the stories that they've always been told about their Aes Sedai. He will be sitting there not wanting to lose her, or not wanting to lose the person that he knows, or even if it's just that she changes and grows as a person. It's interesting that Moraine would destroy the men rather than lose them to the Dark One, so the young men. It's an interesting one. Surely, I think at this stage I'm sitting there thinking, surely there's another option, but we'll find out. I'm still not a fan of Matt. He seems selfish and has a little nastiness in him. Perrin continues to be steady, but maybe too quick to follow his friend, especially Matt at this stage. I feel like he just falls in line, I think. Yeah. Baelon, the first city the villagers have seen. Not surprising that they're so quiet. They're in awe of what they're seeing, really out of their comfort zone. It really reminds me of those times where I've gone to another city in another country that is so removed from what I know. You're just out of your own sort of comfort zone. So that makes perfect sense to me. Now, who are the children of the light, and how much trouble are they going to be causing? Yeah, there's just not this. Again, it's that case of, I know I said this in the last video, Robert Jordan's very, very good at introducing ideas. And then it comes up very quickly after that. So I'm expecting we're going to see more of the children of the light at some point in the chapters, not long after this. And I really want more information about Tom. We have barely seen any glimpse into his personality at this stage. It means that I just don't trust him at all. But I mean, I don't know him. So I'm looking forward to finding more out about him and finding out whether he's someone that they can trust or whether he's there for other reasons. So that will be very, very interesting to see. So there we have it. They are my thoughts as I read through chapters 7 to 13 and what thoughts they were. I'd really love to hear what you have been thinking if this is your first time reading. Let me know whether you had any different thoughts to me. And if you happen to have stumbled across this video and you have read the book before, I'm hoping that you're seeing sort of what it's like for someone new to the book, what they're experiencing in the moment, or what I'm experiencing in the moment, because we all experience things in completely different ways. So join in the conversation. I'd love to hear from you, and stay tuned. I plan on releasing 2 videos a week as much as possible, and potentially some other things. I thought maybe next week I might release a video telling you a little bit more about who I am, and some other things, a little bit about me and what else I've been reading lately. That's my plans. So make sure you subscribe and check out what's going on. Bye.